Many are forecasting a huge year for Notre Dame football. You'll have to wait for my predictions to see if I can be counted among them. We got the guy, Brian Driscoll, here from Irish Breakdown. That should be a go-to for all of you who love college football. See, I did not say anything about Notre Dame in particular. If you love college football, this should be a destination with Brian and the rest of the crew there at Irish Breakdown. Brian, we always appreciate you being here. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, I should say. Thanks for letting me be with you. So I knew it's kind of that time of year. We got to start talking a little bit more, Mark, because the season's, and we're less than a month away now, from the season starting 20 days from Florida State, Georgia Tech. So I'm ready to go, man. I'm fired up.
No doubt. So focusing on this Notre Dame bunch, of course, they've been in camp for a few days, just like everyone else who starts that August 31st weekend. And I'm sure as soon as they hit the field, you've got half of your followers and viewers that want intel. They think that there's going to be something when they're in shorts and T-shirts that you're going to be able to spring on them that's going to shake the Notre Dame foundation. But we'll go a little big picture here and start with at the quarterback position, Riley Leonard, Steve Angeli, their development, and what you would like to see out of those two in particular as they prepare for 2024?
Well, for Riley, it's just get command of this offense, right? Like, we know what he can do. We know the playmaking ability he has. His numbers in 2022 at Duke were better than what Jalen Milroe did at Alabama last year. When you just look at him, yards, touchdowns were almost identical, yards were higher. He's a guy that shows the ability to hurt you in a lot of different ways. Notre Dame needs that, especially with a young offensive line that's largely unproven outside of really one game together. So you want to see that playmaking. That's why you brought him here. But if you're really going to make a run where you're going to win multiple postseason games, he's going to have to become an even more effective player from the pocket, right? Not just as a scrambler, but more so sitting in the pocket and making good decisions, being able to hurt defenses. If they want to come and load the box to defend the run, he's got to be able to make the right decisions as not just a runner, but also in the RPO game to throw behind him. He's going to have to make teams respect their vertical game. Notre Dame's got a very fast receiving core compared to what it's been in recent seasons. This is the most athletic, explosive group of receivers they've had since 2015 when they had Will Fuller and Chris Brown and Amir Carlisle running around. So he's going to have to be able to hit those, make people respect them, because if it's all about his running, the running backs, and the quick RPO game, teams can find answers to that. At least the good teams will, right? Like when you get to the postseason. If you want to really make a run, you've got to be able to do damage throwing the ball down the field, and that's the thing that we need to see from Riley. That was the one area where he needed the most work, in my opinion, based on where he was at Duke. And those are the things you need to see him see, he's going to have more explosive players this year at Notre Dame than he did at Duke, but he's going to have to be effective in those areas to really take his game to the next level.
And Brian, that's actually a place where you alerted me and caused me to rethink Riley Leonard looking back at 2022 and 23, because my recollection of Riley Leonard was more baller, just a gym rat type guy that runs around and threatens the defense. Sure, the passing is decent, but it's not of a higher grade. Now, what you've told me in past conversations is that he surprised you when you reevaluated him in terms of being able to, now he probably needs to be more proficient in making these throws more consistently, but that he can make all the throws.
Right. That's the thing. You nailed it, right? It's the consistency of it. Like, there's not a throw he can't make. I mean, you go back and watch the Kansas game in 2022. He ripped Kansas apart, hitting the deep ball. Then you'll go watch other games. I think he also had a game like, I believe it was Wake Forest. I think it was either Wake Forest or North Carolina later that year, where he went toe-to-toe with it was either Sam Hartman or Drake May, and he was hitting those deep balls. But then there's other games where you say, you've got to step there. You've got to hit that throw. You can't miss that throw when you get that opportunity, especially when you're at Duke. So, you see him with the ability to throw guys open, especially on those, work crossers and overs where he shows the anticipation and the timing and the accuracy needed. But then he'll miss throws he shouldn't miss, right? He'll get his feet out of whack. He'll rush his mechanics, and guys there, you just got to hit that ball. And those are things he's going to have to do a better job of at Notre Dame. Now, one thing he has working at an advantage of Notre Dame is just, by and large, faster and bigger targets. The guys he was throwing to at Duke, especially this past year when Eli Pankel was out, he was really the only size he had at the receiver position. it was a bunch of 5'10" to 6 foot guys. And his top receiver the last 2 years was the player that he beat out for the quarterback job the spring before 2022. You go to Notre Dame and you're talking about throwing to Bo Collins, who's 6'3". You've got Jane Thomas, who's 6'2". You've got Chris Mitchell, who's 6'1". You've got Jaden Greathouse, who's 6'1". You know, you have a lot more size to work with. And then, of course, you've got 6'6" Mitchell Evans and 6'7" Eli Raridan and 6'6" Cooper Flanagan at the tight end position. So he's going to have a lot more weapons, a much better supporting cast around him. Now he's got to make sure that he can not only be the playmaker that you know he can be, but he's also got to have a little bit more field general to him than he had in the past. The tools are there. He's shown it, but he's going to have to bring that element to an even higher level at Notre Dame.
Now, the least important player on the team is, of course, the backup quarterback, but then that changes in one play, and then he becomes the most important player.
First incomplete pass. Let's talk about the backup. Yep.
So, Brian, of course, you God forbid we want to see Riley Leonard complete the season, but if he gets carted off the field, you don't want to have this thought that, well, our season just got carted off as well. Steve Angeli, his progress and whether he's ready for a big moment.
Well, here's the interesting thing about Steve Angeli. Mentally and attitude-wise and his confidence in himself, he's ready. I mean, he's ready for any moment that you throw in front of him. That's one of the things I love about Steve Angeli. I mean, you saw it in the bowl game when Steve had to step in when Sam Hartman opted out. And the kid's going to be poised. I mean, we thought his first spring at Notre Dame, he leads his team to a 2-minute drive, runs in the game-winning touchdown at the end of the game. There's no doubt that he has the poise and the character and the attitude to be successful. My question is, does he have the throwing ability to be that type of impact quarterback? And so far, he has not shown that. He's got a nice arm. It's not great, but it's solid. He's a guy that battles inconsistency from an accuracy standpoint. You know, sometimes like day one, he was very inaccurate, letting the ball loose high. His mechanics got out of whack. Day two, he was better. Day three, he was better. You know, so he's got to kind of work through some of those inaccuracies. And the other thing too, and you could watch this if you watch the bowl game and you watch the blue gold game, he's a guy that tends to really lock in on that first read, and he's going to have to get through that. Now, that's not something that, like, a lot of times, Mark, you and I have been doing this a long time. If a guy can't read a defense beyond his first two reads as a junior, he's probably not going to make a big step in that regard. But Steve's a unique player because he hasn't played as much football as a lot of guys. Steve's junior year of high school, his first year as a starter, was in 2020 during a COVID year. So only got to play like 5 games. And then as a senior, they kind of blew everybody out. And he only ended up throwing for about 1,780 yards or so. So he hasn't played a ton of football. So I do think there's a level he can get to, but that's going to be the key for Steve Angeli. If he wants to stay the backup quarterback, he needs to be able to make some more of those throws if he wants to beat the best teams, because he's going to have 2 very, very talented younger players breathing down his neck who honestly can make every throw you need him to make in Kenny Minchey and CJ Carr.